All right, guys, we're finally back on the water. The boat has been in the shop for nearly 3 weeks now. There was a trim motor that went bad on the back of the boat, and the part was back ordered for 3 weeks, just about 3 weeks. Just crazy. What an awful time to be without your boat. So I haven't been fishing at all in almost 3 weeks. So getting on the water, a lot has changed. We went from, some pre-spawn, spawn, and probably a couple post-spawn fish to probably, I'm guessing, we'll see. That's the hypothesis anyway, that most of these fish will be all post-spawn. I made a couple casts with a buzzbait, and I was on the phone, and I made a couple casts with a buzzbait. I managed to catch 2 fish, one real nice largemouth, and that fish was recovering. It was pretty beat up, but recovering from the spawn, and then we caught a pretty small smallmouth on it, so we're getting a couple fish. We've got the skunk out of the boat and looking to build a pattern. This is a lake that I've never been to before. It's a new lake. I have got just a plethora of rods out on the deck, everything from shallow to deep, and hopefully we'll figure out a pattern. Those fish were shallow, just kind of in the weeds, not too thick. I was able to wind a buzzbait through it, and fun to catch it. Something to note, and I've mentioned this before to you guys, but a buzzbait isn't necessarily just a morning and evening bait. Sometimes that's what it is, but it's only morning and evening. But other times you'll find that you can catch them all day long on a buzzbait, and sometimes the biggest fish will bite a buzzbait midday, and it is exactly 12:30 right now in the day. We just got to the water, but it's 12:30, and those fish ate a buzzbait just fine in the middle of the day. So just something to pay attention to. Don't fight it if it's not working. Don't just throw it all day long and grind away at it and kind of throw your day away. But sometimes it'll work, and it'll catch some big ones sometimes. So something to pay attention to. And I did get a picture of that fish. I didn't get it on video, but I did get a picture. So as long as I remember, I'll include that fish in the video just as a picture, and let you see that. Oh, we got an eagle. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but we got an eagle somewhere right there. I can't see it at the moment, but I can hear it. And I saw a juvenile eagle just a second ago. It was, not white head and white tail yet. It was kind of molting, but kind of special to see. All right, guys, let's get to the fish, and I'll bring you along and see if we can build a pattern. Hey there, guys. Well, we picked up another fish. I've got an update. I'll probably do like a recap at the end of the video. I haven't showed much for fish catches, but I'll give you an update. I met someone on the lake, just a random guy, and I'll cover all that in the update. Truth is stranger than fiction, and interesting guy. Glad to meet him. It was a lot of fun, but I didn't get a lot of video footage yet. But hopefully I'll catch a few more here, and we'll catch them on video. And see what's noticed. He's got something there. Bugs. Okay, he's got bugs. He's been eating bugs off the surface. There are bugs down his throat, but just a little smallmouth. And we've been catching quite a few on this square bill here, and a few other baits, but that one's certainly been getting it done. So we're going to fish a little bit more. There's some rocky humps right here, and we're going to fish a little bit more and see if we can pick up a couple more. Okay, guys, I made the cast, was about to shut the video off, and just picked up right on the surface. I casted the bait in, it hit the water, and this one picked it up before I even started reeling it. Again, baby, but obviously there are some fish here, so we might try, knowing that, we might try a little bit of a top water. I don't know, we'll see. Let's see. Get this one back, and we will see if we can catch some more. Sure enough, here's another one, guys. Sure enough, this one feels like a better fish right here. Yes, indeed. boat for you guys. It's 3 fish on back-to-back casts. This one's a largemouth though. My goodness. Okay, that is bigger than I thought. Okay, that is bigger than I thought. Alrighty then. Well, good enough. And we got that one on video. All right. There we go. Just a beautiful fish. Look at that. Beautiful fish. Healthy, recovering. You can see, I'll show you right here. You can see this is post-spawn, and they're healing up. This is a little bit sort of healing up right here. You can see in the tail that it's a little beat up, but they're looking pretty good. The underneath here is looking pretty good. We'll get her back in the water. There we go. Beautiful. All right. Let's catch another one. Seems to be drifting on us a little bit. We must have been just about out of our depth range. That one, when I caught that one, there's a rock hump right here, and we just kind of drifted into it because the power poles couldn't quite reach. But we had just bounced it off of a couple rocks and just sucked it right in. Here we go. Another smallmouth on the square bill. I think we're about to try to find something new. We've worked this. It's a big rock hump, but we've worked this rock hump pretty thoroughly, and we've picked up fish on it, and we caught one real good one. But I think it's about time to find something else. I'm actually kind of biding my time just a little bit, and maybe I shouldn't, but there's a good weed, you know, a cove with some weeds in it, and I'd really like to focus on some top water, and hoping I can get a top water bite as the day is winding down and the sun starts to come down a little bit. Hoping that'll be pretty active. We'll see. But that's what I'd ideally like to have happen, and but we're going to keep hunting, hunting for fish for a little bit more here before we hit that weed cove. I don't think it's a giant, but it's a good fighting fish. Not a giant, but it pulled hard and a lot of fun to catch. Alrighty. Alright. There we go, skinny. You can see it's very skinny. Needs to fatten up. But fun all the same. We spent a whole bunch of time on a grass flat and got quite a few bites, but couldn't put a single fish in the boat. I kept trying things. The thing that I got the most bites on was a gavacho frog, and that's by Jackal. It's one of my favorite frogs. It's a popping frog, but I don't really work it like a popper. I work it just like I would a walking bait. So I just barely walk the rod tip and just walk that frog, and it is phenomenal. We got quite a few bites on that, and they were very explosive, but they wouldn't take it. And then I tried 2 other frogs that I like quite a lot, and they would just barely bump it, so they weren't the right direction. And then I used a buzzbait some and got a few nips at it, but nothing serious. So I probably spent longer than I should have in the grass, but I would prefer to catch them that way if they were catchable. But we're back here. There's a little island hump, and it seems like a lot of these fish are moving offshore, at least the catchable fish. And if you're slightly bigger, like right on the bank, you'll catch some, but they seem to be just, teeny little fish. And but if you move offshore somewhere today, it seems like some of these rock humps seem to be really key. And you'll still catch some small fish doing it, but you'll catch a few better fish, is at least what I'm finding today. That seems to be the key for me so far. And you know, one of the absolute best baits for me has been this square bill. This is a River to Sea biggie, and it's the larger of the two. Sort of a natural color. The water's fairly clear, and you can see this bait has been through the war. The bill is very rounded over, if you can see that, and normally it's a lot more square, thus the name square bill, but it deflects off cover, and that's what's supposed to happen, is that you're bouncing it off a cover. But that one, and I'm missing an eye on this side, but this one has been through the war, but it has caught a ton of fish. It's probably about time to retire it. What I find is as that bill wears down, it doesn't dive as deep and it's not quite as erratic, which is kind of the whole point. Having a very erratic bait is kind of the whole point of a square bill. But it has been getting it done today, and I'm really enjoying fishing it. Kind of a big key to that, I've swapped the reels. This is the new Mentanium B reel. It's the brand new one. I just got it. I spooled it up last night, and it's the XG. So we're moving at 8.1 to 1. So really moving that bait. I mean, we are hauling, and I'm winding. I'm not just barely winding. I'm winding, not as fast as I can go, but pretty much as comfortably as I can go, as sort of as fast as possible. That's how fast I'm reeling this reel, and just a lot of quick short stops and rod. And when I stop, let me try to demonstrate here. But as I'm reeling this along like this, I'll reel it, bring it into me, pop it, and point it back, and that's going to cause the bait to dart side to side and hang for a second. So if the fish is following it fast, it's going to most likely either commit to it or turn away and stop following it. I would obviously prefer that he commits to it and bites it, but either one, it's not doing me much good just to have a fish following me. So I'm going to wind it as fast as I can, pop the rod tip, point it right back to it, just kind of like I would a jerkbait. So it works, when you do that. Any crankbait will do this, or almost any crankbait. It's coming in, and you pull it real hard, it's gonna, and give it slack. It's going to pull hard and then turn one way or the other, turn sideways, and hang for a second, and then this one's going to start rising, but still it's going to just, for a real quick second, it's going to do something different, and they're probably going to either run away from it or lash out at it, and I guess either one of those is okay. I'd rather them lash out at it, but I'm getting some response one way or the other. Just like it's kind of the same idea when you're deflecting it. You really want to deflect this off of something, rocks, limbs, whatever cover you have, ripping it just out of the grass, but you want to move it very, very fast. Speed is key. So that's why I've got it on this XG reel, and it is, moving, and that seems to be making a huge difference for me. I had it on a slightly slower reel, and boy, I could just not seem to quite trigger the bites. I'd get a few bites, but it wasn't as triggering, it didn't seem. And this reel seems to be making a big difference. I like the reel. I haven't, again, I've just used it today, so it's not like I could probably do a thorough review. I've got one on this square bill, and then I've got one on a shaky head, a 1/4 ounce shaky head. I kind of wanted to see what it would do with a real light bait and a worm, and so just trying it out today. This is the first time, but I don't feel like I could do a full-on review, but I like it. I like it a lot. And one thing that I like, and I noticed this with the Aldebaran, it's got a very large, I don't know if you can even see that, it's got a very large, where the line comes through the reel, it's very large, and then it necks down, but it's still a fairly large hole. I like that, especially because I fish a lot of braid to leader, and sometimes it's a long leader, but still I'm running that connection knot through that reel. And when it's a teeny weeny little hole, I find it fights me as it comes through there. Where this, and again, you've got to imagine, this could be dead center, which is probably the most convenient spot, but it's going to wind up inevitably, as you reel that, it's pushing the line back and forth, it's going to wind up, you're going to make a cast when it's on the far left side or the far right side, and the line is coming off the spool back and forth. So it's obviously, there's times when it's having to, you know, really curl around that. Well, when it's, you know, larger and then maybe necks down a little bit to help feed it through, I feel like it casts a lighter bait a lot better and does a, you know, something with a connection knot much better. So I'm really glad that they put that in there. I really liked it with the Aldebaran, and that's a real known for throwing finesse baits, and it seemed like they got it, but then now they've transferred it to this other reel, this Montanium, and I like that. I think it makes just a little difference. It makes my life a little better, and hey, I want my life to be a little better if I can, you know, why not? Who doesn't, you know? And if I can afford it. And so anyway, again, I'm not going to do a full review on it or anything. I don't feel like I could give you good enough information, but I like it so far. And I think it's made a big difference on this bait, a very fast retrieve reel, and it wouldn't have to be this Montanium, but some reel that moves very, very fast. So let's keep at it. Got a little baby smallmouth on the buzzbait. I can't help myself. I'm back in the weeds. It's the very end of the day. The boat launch is close by. Oh, let's get you back in the water. Come on. Come on. All right. It's the very end of the day. I can't even help myself. I'm back in the weeds and picked up one very small smallmouth. Pretty uneventful in here, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun to catch fish in the grass that I can't even help myself. I'll be here for a few more minutes, and then we're gonna head back to the truck. It's gonna get dark soon, and I will do my best. If we don't catch any more fish, or even if we do, I will do my best to do a recap and just talk a little bit about the specific baits. You know, the rods, reels, maybe the line. Just kind of a recap and what we were finding, and just let you in on, you know, on what we did today. It was a fun day. I will definitely fish this lake again. Again, it's brand new to me, but it is a really neat lake, and I haven't gotten to cover the whole lake yet. But so far it is just been a lot of fun today, and you know, excited to just do a recap with you here. Probably it'll be tomorrow, but we'll do a recap and get that to you guys so we can all learn together. All right, let's get back at it. Okay, guys, this is the day after recap that I promised you. It was a fun day. It went a little unexpected. I had planned to get out earlier in the day, but work just kept piling on, and I couldn't make it to the lake before I got there at about 12:30. I made a few casts. I was on the phone, again, still a work call, but I was on the phone and caught two fish on a buzzbait right off, 12:30 in the day, and I did cover that with you guys in the video earlier. But on a buzzbait, caught two fish, a smallmouth, real small, and a largemouth that was pretty decent. And so right off, caught a couple fish on the buzzbait. And then I ended up meeting a guy on the lake. He lives on the lake, and just a real interesting guy. And so we ended up spending a whole bunch of time just talking and getting to know each other just a little bit and learning about him and what he's done. Very interesting guy, incredible businessman, which fascinates me. And so had a whole bunch of fun meeting that guy, connecting with him. And but it meant that I didn't get to fish a lot. And then just had a few hours at the end of the day that we were able to fish. And I did catch some more on a buzzbait and caught another real good one. The best fish of the day came on the buzzbait. So that was kind of neat. And that's pretty typical, I guess, if we're talking about averages. A buzzbait is on average, it's a bigger fish bait. And the frog is a bigger fish bait, a jig is a bigger fish bait, you know, there are obviously a big swim bait is a big fish bait, but a buzz bait is a, you know, it tends to give you a little better average. So the buzz bait caught some good ones, and we caught a few on it. And this was a new lake, so I knew nothing about the lake. It seems it's a fairly large lake for here in Maine, and let's see, it has a huge run of alewives from the ocean that come in and spawn, and then head back to the ocean. So that was kind of interesting about the lake. It seemed like the fish were very healthy and they feed on those alewives. So that was interesting. And then it had a healthy population of both large and smallmouth, from what I could tell, based on my fishing, just the little bit that I got. And then it has a lot of grass, but it also has a lot of rock and wood. So I am definitely going to go back to this lake and spend a little more time. It intrigues me. It's about an hour and a half away from where I live, which is it's you know, pushing it. It's 3 hours of driving just to go fishing. But the lake is worth it. I'm definitely going to fish it a few more times and learn a little bit more as I can. I managed to get a frog bite. We only caught one. I didn't throw it a ton. But I desperately, it's the things that you do because you like to fish a certain way. So sometimes you're forcing something that maybe isn't the best thing, and I might even know that. And sometimes you probably do the same thing. You want to catch fish a certain way, so you do it. And you can. Maybe you won't catch the most fish or the biggest fish, or maybe you'll catch a few fish but the biggest fish, or you know, but you know, we all do that for various reasons, because we want to, because we want to catch a certain class of fish. But the frog is just one that oh man, if there is one way to catch them, and I probably said that about a whole bunch of baits, but if there's one way to catch them, the frog is the deal. And this is one of my favorite frogs. I'll probably do a frog video eventually, but I do have a few that I like. But this one, if I had just probably one frog, you said, Andrew, you have to pick one frog in the whole world, it would be this frog in this exact color. And this is the Jackall Gavacho popping frog. I do not work it like a popping, you know, a popper, where you just pop, and it just spits. I work it like a spook. So I'm walking this bait, and it walks so easily. It's got to be one of the easiest frogs I've ever had, and I think it's partly the shape of it, sure, but the cupped face. It walks like you wouldn't believe. There's almost nothing to it. I mean, I've got a 7.3 extra heavy rod, and this is my favorite frog rod right here. It's an X-Pride 7.3 extra heavy, and I am just lightly working that rod tip, and you've got to give slack back to your frog, just like you would a spook, but maybe even more so with a frog. You've got to pop it, but give, and just little rod twitches. We're not talking, you know, these massive, you know, rod twitches. We're just talking, I mean, just barely, where the rod tip is maybe moving 3 to 6 inches, and I'm just barely moving it up, you know, up by the reel, just light. And then you're always pointing that rod tip back at it, so it has the room. If you don't, it'll just barely move. But if you give it room, it will walk. I mean, major side to side walk, and it is unbelievable. And especially, I fish a lot of clearer water, and it looks kind of like a bluegill. I would, you know, as I think what their imitation is, and a little different kind of frog, 3 little tails. The hooks are a little smaller, but very heavy duty, and boy, they stick fish. I mean, absolutely stick them. And I do, again, I probably should do a frog video, but I tend to bend them out and up just a little bit, and I'll get through some pretty heavy cover with this frog. I mean, I'm not going to fish a super nasty mat with it. I'm not going to fish the cheese with this, but just pretty heavy lily pads. Yeah, I'll walk it right through that. And tulies, yeah, I'll walk it right through that, and then right into open cover and walk it back. And it is amazing what you can do with a frog. So I did catch one. It's not primo time yet, but I just had to do it, and I caught a decent one on it. You know, it was nothing to scoff at. So I love a frog, love that frog in particular. And I do have other colors of the same frog, but 99% of the time, that one. And I've caught largemouth and smallmouth on it. It's small enough that a smallmouth can get it in its mouth and really get it. So it is just an awesome frog. I caught a few fish flipping. I was using this Strike King Rage Bug. This is the Skeet Reese something, Pit Boss. This is the Pit Boss. I was using that. I fished just a little bit with my kids today, so I was fishing this Pit Boss, but I was using the the structure bug. I think the Rage structure bug is what it was yesterday, and I caught a couple on the structure bug. Again, not a giant quantity of fish, but when there's some good wood, trees and stuff, I can't help but pick it up, or a dock or something like that. I caught quite a few on the worm. The shaky head right here, and that is my favorite shaky head. That's a Scott Canterbury shaky head. It's the 1/4 ounce. It's got a screw lock keeper and a decent hook on it, enough that you can put some pressure on those fish, but not so much that I'm fishing it on 12-pound line. You could probably get away with 10, no problem, but I like 12. But it's strong enough that you can stick them and keep them pinned, but not so big that you need a broomstick and 50-pound braid to set the hook on it. So I caught them on this color. This is like a sort of a morning dawn type of color. I caught him on June bug here, and I caught him on something like this. It was actually a Strike King. These are all Zoom trick worms, but the Strike King is almost identical to this in color and everything else. But I will use the Strike King quite a bit, and the Zoom trick worms I use an awful lot. So I caught them on 3 different colors, and I will do that sometimes. I usually start out with a very natural, something like this, super natural, and that seems to be like tried and true. I mean, you're going to catch them, unless it's chocolate milk, which I'm probably not going to go to a worm if it's chocolate milk anyway. But when I mean chocolate milk, really stained water. That it just isn't going to be my first choice. But anyway. I'm typically fishing pretty clear water, so I typically start with something very natural, something like that, green pumpkin or something like that, or a morning dawn. That's very natural as well. And then I will usually just start messing around with it. And I've had days that color really mattered. I've had days that it just doesn't seem to matter at all. And yesterday was one of those days. I caught them on 3 different colors, and it didn't seem to make any difference. If I'm catching them pretty good, I will typically go to something dark. So I will go to June bug, here we are, June bug, or a black. And typically I catch a little bigger fish with a dark color for some reason. Maybe not quite as many, sometimes just as many. But maybe not just quite as many, but typically a little bigger fish on a dark color. But I usually don't start with that dark color. Sometimes if it's tied on, I will. But most of the time I start with a very natural color and just start messing around from there if I'm getting bites. And if I swap to a color and then I'm just not getting the bites, yeah, I'm going to swap right back to what I was catching them on. But I like to mess around with it a little bit. And you can learn sometimes wow, color made such a difference, or color made no difference at all. And sometimes we get hung up on something, and it really makes no difference at all. And yet, if we didn't experiment, we'd be convinced that was the determining factor, and it wasn't. So there was obviously something else. Maybe a worm was a determining factor, but not the color. Or maybe the color is, but it could be any bait in that color. I like to mess around with it to try to figure out a full pattern. And then we did cover this on the water, but the square bill was the business. I mean, that is the one that consistently, oh, hi dear, how you doing? My wife is, we're in the garage and she's, getting ready for tomorrow and I think taking care of the chicks. They're pretty quiet this evening, so I don't know, you're probably not hearing them much. But anyway, but this was the business, the square bill crankbait, and that just flat out caught them consistently all day. And it seemed like they were moving off. You get some small fish. The buck bass were up right on the bank, probably guarding fry. But then it seemed like there was a huge quantity of fish, and a lot of the females that were recovering, their tails were all kind of beat up, but recovering beat up, and they were all offshore somewhere. Sometimes not very far. They were just on the first break or a rock pile, sort of the closest rock pile or point out of the spawning areas is what it seemed like. They hadn't gone real far, and I kept trying. I didn't even pull it out for you, but I kept trying. It was a deep diving crankbait, not super deep, but I used a 5XD and a 6XD, so somewhere in that, I don't know, probably 12 to 15 and 15 to 19 feet of water I was fishing, and I couldn't get a bite to save my life. And nothing, not even a nibble. I mean, not even a nibble. So it didn't seem like they were super deep, but in that probably 5 to 10 feet of water, that 7, 8 seemed to be the sweet spot, but a little bit on either side. Boy, that square bill got it done. And I wasn't always, I like it best when I'm deflecting off a cover, but quite a bit of where I was catching them it was just a little too deep for me to deflect off cover. But I was really burning that bait, and I covered this earlier, but I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it is so important. I can't stress it enough. Speed is so important, and I could tell it made a huge difference yesterday. But that start and stop retrieve, I'd be absolutely winding that thing. I'd stop it and pop that rod tip, and it'll dart and turn off and start rising. And that, I mean, they'd crush it. And then I'd just go start winding, and they'd just have it. I mean, absolutely have it. So that was the biggest key. Speed was the key. And that, again, it's a cheap rod. I'm almost embarrassed. It's not, it's which is terrific. If you've got something that works that's cheap, I mean, even better. I like high-end gear as much as the next guy, but this thing, and I'm sure someday I'll replace them, but this is, and I've talked about it, before. It is the Quantum. It's the KBD medium heavy 7.4 glass rod, and boy, it loads up so well. And I can throw a square bill all the way up to that 6XD. I was throwing no problem on this rod, and I caught my personal best on one of these rods earlier this spring on that wintertime tactical deep diving crankbait. That was terrific, but again, it handled a 7.76 fish just beautifully. Loads up awesome, and yet it still has some power in here, and fairly comfortable. They are a heavier rod because they're glass, the E-glass, but good rod, and for the money, I mean, you cannot beat them. And so I guess that's about it. High-speed reel. We covered where they were. They were mostly offshore, moving off, the little bit better fish. I will definitely fish that lake again, and can't wait to bring you on that lake. If you have any questions about anything and you say, man, you missed this, I really wanted to know, leave a comment. I will do my very best to get to it and answer those questions. I'm excited to share what I know, and hey, learning is something that it should be just a part of our life. It should be our whole attitude is constantly learning. And I learn stuff just by doing these videos for you guys, because I'm forced to think about it a little bit more, and I say, now why do I do that? Oh, well, here's why. Or maybe I don't have a good reason for it, so I need to reassess and discover if it was totally unnecessary. Or yeah, there is a good reason behind it. So learning is super key. Oh, I was just going to cover real quickly. This is the exact square bill I had on, and I covered this River to Sea. Oh boy, River to Sea, Biggie, square bill, And that's the one. You look at that bill, it is rounded right over. So here's a brand new one. If you look at the difference, I think you can see that. This one is rounded right over and smaller, and this one's got the very square corners. So I'm going to retire this one. This one's done. It's not diving very deep, which is, it can be okay, but it also isn't quite as wide a wobble and doesn't deflect quite as well. So I'm starting with, you know, another one that this one, or I've got another one tied on there, but it's been used just a little in it, but it's fairly square and good still. So I did just want to show you, I pulled both of those out just so you can see. Pay attention to that with your square bills. Sometimes, you know, it sneaks up on you. You've been deflecting off a cover, and that's the point. You know, you want to deflect off cover, but it will chew your bill up. All right, this video is way too long. I apologize for the length, but terrific to get to fish with you and do a quick recap. Take care, guys.